Hello, EduMagicians. Welcome to the EduMagic podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of EduMagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
I'm Katie Atwell, co-host of the EduGals podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, EduMagicians, and welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I am with an award-winning educator, an author of articles, an amazing associate chair of a KDP chapter, KDP Kane. So if you're a KDP Kane member, shout out to you. Leanna Malinowski, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
And I'm so excited to be back. This is great.
Awesome. Yeah, you're a second-time guest on the show. If you want to listen to Leanna's previous episode about special education to help future teachers get ready for special education, I'm going to link it in the show notes so you can hear her lovely voice again, sharing about some tips and tricks for beginning special ed teachers. But today we are in mid-semester slump, Leanna, and I want to share about some tips and some strategies to help students keep either pushing through to spring break, keep that motivation up and going, because let's face it, over here in the Northeast, it's a little cold, it's a little windy, it's a little, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. What are some ways, and why is it important for our future teachers to continue to keep the mojo going, to keep that excitement going for learning and teaching?
Absolutely. Well, I can relate with the whole weather thing. I am ready for warm weather anytime.
Yes.
After the holidays, it's warm weather. Here we go. But yeah, it's one of the things I want to start off by telling our pre-service teachers, don't let yourself be fooled, because the slump doesn't just happen when you're a pre-service teacher. It happens when you're a classroom teacher as well. So don't feel like there's something wrong with you or anything like that. We feel it too. The students are feeling it now that we're on that brink of the spring weather. And it's just one of those odd times in the year that you have difficulty describing to others, other than your teacher friends who will go, I get it. It's a little bit of a difficult time, but it is still important to keep your energy up and going. Number one, it's just simply good practice, because when you're a teacher and you're in the classroom and that wall hits with you and your students, you won't have a choice. You have to keep that energy going. And I always say teaching is part performance, right? And we want to convince our students, even if it's not the best and strongest or interactive of lessons, and it's something that we just kind of have to do, when you put that energy into it and that stage presence on, they get into it, and then you get excited, and it's just this wonderful circle of energy, and your energy starts to pick up as well. So let's just start there with that. One of the other things I want to say is don't be afraid to give yourself the breaks that you need. I've been doing work for a few days now in a row, and I took several breaks because, let's face it, I need them, and we have to just own up to that. And it's okay to admit that you need a break, for sure.
Absolutely. So a couple of things I want to touch on would be teaching is part performance. Have you ever read that book by Dave Bridges, Teach Like a Pirate?
That is one of my teaching Bibles. Long story made short, because I could be here chatting about him all day, and I hope he hears this.
I'll make sure I send it to him.
Okay. I had the blessing and the honor of meeting him in person at Convocation for KDP in, I believe it was 2017 in Pittsburgh. And I got to have breakfast with him. And talk about picking your energy up. So one of the things I was going to get into, hopefully in a few minutes, was some great resources and people to look up to get your energy up. He is the number one go-to energizer for teachers. If you're ever having a bad day, he even has a podcast, listen to his podcast, pick up one of his books, look up some of his resources, and he will make you feel re-energized in an instant. He's one of my go-to resources for that. And there's definitely others, but Teach Like a Pirate is the teaching Bible. If you don't have it, please get it, along with Dr. Sam's book and all the other greats. But
Thanks.
it's a great one. I can't help but acknowledge that.
It really is a fantastic resource. For me, when he said it's like a performance, he shares about that in his book about would you be able to sell tickets to your lesson? Would you want to be a student in your lesson? And these are all great questions to ask. So one, make sure we're providing meaningful learning opportunities for our students. And two, that we're also engaged in the learning process, learning those new strategies, techniques, ed tech tools, all those different things so we can best support our students.
Absolutely. And one thing I've learned from his performance is the more sort of out there or goofy you look, the more your students are going to love it, especially the little ones. I find big kids too, but the more I'm animated, the more my students feel that they're pulled in and they're smiling and even laughing at me. So don't feel bad if you're like, I feel so goofy right now. That means your performance is just really great.
Yes, yes. There's also another great educator, Monica Genta. Have you heard of her? She's on Instagram a lot and she has several books. I think it's like how to be an awesome educator, something like that. I'll make sure I look it up and put it in the show notes. But she always shares quick little tips and strategies to get you excited. And she teaches middle school. So if it works with middle schoolers, and it surely has to work with others. But she has so
Absolutely.
many fun things.
Absolutely. And shout out to all of my pre-service teachers who want to work with middle school or any educators already working in the middle school. It's just shout out to you because I'm just going to stick with the little ones, to be honest. But I've seen and heard of her through Instagram. I have not read her book, but I think that's important to keep the energy going through this time of the slump because let's face it, because you're tired, you don't want to do too much extra work because it's just going to sort of pull you back. But anything that's a quick takeaway, something that you can sort of stick with you like a post-it in your brain and bring with you really quick. That's what's going to uplift you. And it's something you're going to remember. And I think that that's really important. So, my advice is, try to look for resources that maybe aren't too heavy right now. And if you find ones like a great webinar title, maybe not watch it now, see if you can save the recording or watch it later, but sort of shop for things that are going to feel like you're going to get that energy up and get your adrenaline going.
I like that the shopping around for PD that you can do on your own time at your own pace. Remember, nothing too heavy. We're getting into testing season soon. Maybe just shop around, see some things you like, bookmark them, and come back to them later.
Absolutely. That's what I do all the time. Believe it or not, I sort of save things in a list and it gets me motivated to want to do the things that I have to do so I can watch that. It's almost like a treat for me. So treat yourself. And you might say like, how is that a treat? I'm going to be doing more work. But the beauty of self-learning and self-professional development is you get to pick the topics.
Yes.
It's not from your professors or, when you get to be a teacher from your faculty meetings and things like that. You get to pick the topics, so you're going to be more apt to do it.
Absolutely. I like how you called it a treat. So I have to do this, but then I get to do the other thing. I love that. Another thing you had brought up is setting breaks or boundaries. So being protective of your time. Can you share what that would look like or some examples?
I'm actually not that great of an example right now because this year I've been, really honored to be a county teacher of the year. So my schedule's been a little more busier than usual. And I'm not a great example of the time management right now for sure. But I always make sure I find time to exercise, even if it's just the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I go and I carve out that time. I get to listen to my music or a podcast, again, as a treat, something that I wanted to hear. And I think that that's important. And exercise does get our adrenalines going. We always obviously give our students brain breaks and movement breaks because we know it's good for them. But I think we forget sometimes that that's good for us. And it doesn't have to be a gym membership or anything. It could be stretching at home, going for a walk, doing something with an at-home exercise. And I'm a big proponent of exercise. It's always been integrated into my life through figure skating and dance. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the performance too. But it's okay to just put on music and just dance and exercise and feel like you're, releasing your energy out.
And it's also a great stress reliever too.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that you shared about, making sure you have time to exercise, also taking care of yourself. That's another form of self-care. And as pre-service teachers, that's something I wish that I learned about before I even began teaching as a student teacher, it would have been really helpful to remember, hey, I need to take care of myself so I can invest in those 30 little ones in front of me.
Absolutely. Because, when you're at your best, they're going to be at their best. So, healthy and happy teacher is going to really project onto the students.
Absolutely, absolutely. For our student teachers who are listening today, student teaching is like a full-time teaching job. There are, some caveats to it. You're not there the whole contracted time, September through May. You do have breaks, those types of things. But what are some tips that you have for our student teachers listening regarding setting up boundaries around their time? Because it can get really easy to get into that mode of, all right, I teach from 7 to 3, I come home, I eat something, and then from 4 until 10 or 11 o'clock, I'm creating lesson plans, I'm creating all these materials and resources. What are some ways they can start to streamline their time a little bit?
I would definitely say talk with your cooperating teacher and see if there's any advice that he or she has, because every classroom is unique, every student teaching experience is unique. So, my generalized information hopefully will help, but for more personalized help, you want to speak with someone that you're working closely with. And that sort of preps you for when you're having your own classroom and you're in the same situation where you're grading papers and there's a lot going on. You're going to go to your coworkers and you're going to ask for advice for your
Yeah.
team or your grade level, right? So my first piece of advice is to turn to your cooperating teacher and say, here's my schedule and I'm having some difficulties with time management, and see what he or she says. Maybe they can give you some direct strategies and whatnot. But what I like to do personally is I like to sort of take that break right after when I get home. I call it my transition time. And then I have a set time where I start. So sort of keeping a clock for me, kind of like I would for my students, has been very helpful with that. And I make sure that I'm having my dinner and I'm not trying to do things at the same time, or if I have to, it's something minimal that it's not going to, let my dinner get cold type thing. So,
Yes.
but every situation's unique in that way. And there might be something that your cooperating teacher could help you with, like, maybe we can split grading papers, or, there's an easier way to do this. Or if it's an online grading system, sometimes things will grade for you. So
Mhm.
definitely reach out to them. They're your best resource.
Absolutely. I love that. And that little sample schedule, I'm sure, was really helpful for somebody feeling really overwhelmed. How do I manage it all? How do I put it all into practice here? You had mentioned that you have a couple of more tips that, and I only stopped you at two. I'm sorry. What else do you have to share for us today?
Like I said, exercise number one, but also definitely make time for something that you like to do. Even if it's something that doesn't seem, just a little unorthodox. Like for me, believe it or not, I love cleaning my house. Why? Because I know, right? Everybody looks at me kind of oddly when I say that, but I'm not sitting at my desk grading papers, and it's active for me. I'm running up and down stairs, or I'm doing things. And even if it's something that doesn't seem typical, if it's something you enjoy, take the time to do that. I always try on Fridays, I call it Friend Friday. I always send a text to my friends, my non-teacher friends that I don't really get to talk to during the week. And I check up on them and see how they're doing. Or, even if you're just using voice text or a simple phone call. Or whatnot. So that's just something that you should keep in mind, because cultivating those relationships and keeping your friendships going is definitely important.
All right. All right. So that was a fantastic one. I love the Friend Friday. That is really impactful and something that somebody can put into place right now if they wanted to. They could call it Friend Tuesday if they wanted to, whatever it might be, just keeping in
Yes.
touch with their friends. What's another tip that you have for us during this slumpy time?
Well, like I said before, I'm a big proponent in professional development for yourself. And although it seems, like we said, like extra work, finding things about teaching that interest you, or something new in the profession that maybe you haven't tapped into yet, is definitely something you can implement right away. You can look for those quick resources online, or you can just sort of shop around, save for later, and it will get your motivation going. One of the things that I would advocate for, especially pre-service teachers, because they often don't think about this one, is to be a part of a professional organization as a student member.
Yes.
And sometimes it does cost a fee. I know we're all sort of struggling with that, but that money is worth the membership because you're going to meet other people. You're going to get resources out of it, especially when you have those term papers like article journals and things like that. A lot of organizations do come with those resources available. They have webinars or a resource library for you. So belonging to an organization sort of gives you an easier way to find those resources. So instead of just shopping around, if you belong to an organization, say for technology or for reading, special education, it's sort of all in one box. And please believe it from me, that's how I've met so many people in the field, is through different professional organizations. And it gives you that sense of friendship and camaraderie that you don't otherwise get other than being in your school or in your classes.
Right. And what are some organizations that you suggest students get involved in?
Oh, absolutely. Well, of course, I'm going to advertise KDP because
Yes, I was hoping.
they are the number one organization for pre-service and early educators. So definitely check out kdp.org and just sign up. Just do it. But other organizations that I belong to a lot. So if it seems overwhelming, I apologize, friends, but I belong to a few reading ones, the International Dyslexia Association and the International Literacy Association. So if you're a reading specialist on the way, guru like I am, those two are fabulous. ISTE for sure for technology. And I've also had a long time membership in CEC, which is the Council for Exceptional Children, and they're all things special education. So those are my top go-tos, but there's other like National Council for Teachers of Math and Science and all of those groups.
Right.
So just sort of Google search and you'll find your way to these great places.
And they not only offer publications and articles, but also conferences, places to meet other educators passionate about the topics that you are interested in too. And KDP and CEC offer student memberships that are reasonably priced. And if you're a student teacher, there's also insurance there too. So you can get that as a part of your membership, which might be beneficial. I'll make sure I put the links in our show notes. So if you're interested in joining any of those fabulous organizations, you can check those out over in the show notes. All right, Leanna, finish us up. What's our last one?
I would say definitely give yourself as a teacher the grace that you need and the pace that you need to get yourself out of the slump, because you will get out of the slump. It's not a forever thing. It's temporary. Everybody goes through it, and allow yourself the grace. Because I think as educators, the hardest thing for us is to offer forgiveness. And I think sometimes the world is a little less forgiving on teachers because our expectations are so high. So because those expectations are high, you have to sort of not lower your expectations, but lower that bar for yourself and allow yourself the forgiveness and say, you know what, I'm having a difficult day or difficult week. This is a difficult time for me. Please believe me, we all go through it, and allow yourself the grace to work through it however you truly need to. And it's okay to admit that. And I think in a way that should actually be step one.
I was going to say, let's rearrange the list a little bit. Yes. I agree. Giving yourself grace. It's okay to have a bad day. Reflect on it. And I think that's fantastic. We've gone through lots of different strategies during this episode. We talked about having teaching as performance. So embrace that side. Make sure you're excited to learn. You're excited to teach your students. It's going to reflect right upon your students as well. Make sure you're setting boundaries for your time, setting up breaks for yourself as an educator, focusing in on your why, joining organizations so you can reap the benefits of the articles, the journals, the conferences, the professional development opportunities, the webinars. Pick and choose what you like and save for later. And then give yourself grace and time. Give yourself grace and time. Everybody goes through this. Absolutely. Friends, we wish you the best of luck during this semester. And Leanna, is there anything else you'd like to share, or where our students, our listeners can find you online, read your stuff, give you congrats, award-winning educator that you are? Congratulations again.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. My words of advice: find your people, form your pod. So reach out. I'm here. There's plenty of other educators. Dr. Sam is here. So we're all here to support you, and just know that you do have a team behind you. Pretty much I'm at Ms. Malinowski everywhere, from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And when you're on my Instagram page, I am sort of like, I guess, a beginning blogger. Even if my little words of advice could help one person, then it's done its job for the week.
Yes.
So I just try to offer some weekly advice, and I do Inspiration Sunday posts to help uplift that Sunday slump that we all go through. So definitely feel free to connect with me on social media. Again, it's at Ms. Malinowski. And that's my last name everywhere. So I hope to see everyone there.
Fantastic. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. And I love your Sunday inspirational pieces. They're so peaceful to read. That background that you chose with the plants is so peaceful, and stuff that you can reflect upon in your own practice. So thank you for putting those out there in the world. They're very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, friends. Remember, you have the Edu Magic within you. Bye for now.
And there you have it, Edu-Magicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more Edu Magic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram at sfessage. Until next time, you have the Edu Magic within you.